Hi guys, my name is Haley Juarez, and today I'm going to be talking about the perspectives of the French and Americans during each revolution. I will give a brief summary and follow with the causes of each war. Additionally, I will discuss the influence of Enlightenment and compare and contrast both wars' resolutions. Alors on commence, so let's get started with the American Revolution. The American Revolution started in 1775 when British troops marched from Boston to Concord, Massachusetts, and then popped off the shot heard around the world, marking the start of the Revolution. The 13 colonies initially just wanted to condemn taxation without representation. However, after 7 years of bloodshed, defeat, and victory, the Treaty of Versailles was signed on September 3, 1783, and America had won its independence. George Washington was unanimously voted into office as the first president of the United States. There are three main causes of the American Revolution. First, economic struggle. Britain made a plan to raise revenue by taxing the colonies for imported goods. The Stamp Act of 1765, the Townshend Acts of 1767, and the Tea Acts of 1773 were all means of heavily taxing the colonists for imported goods. These taxes got some colonists upset, and soon came the famous line, "No taxation without representation." Colonies were boycotting British goods in order to send a message. The colonies financially depended on Britain for resources and money. The second main cause was absolute monarchy. Britain also needed money to pay for its war debts. The king and parliament believed they had the right to tax the colonists. They decided to require several kinds of taxes from the colonists to help pay for the French and Indian War. King George stationed British military troops all over the colonies' territory, even though the French and Indian War was over. The final main cause was unequal rights. The colonists rebelled against Great Britain because they felt that they were not represented in the British Parliament. The British government was making new policies and taxes on the colonies, but the colonies had no say in the matter. Alright, now let's jump to France. The French Revolution started in 1789 when the National Assembly revolutionaries stormed the Bastille to gather weapons for their revolt. The revolution started by the Third Estate wanting the constitutional monarchy. This idea was thrown out the window when Louis XVI committed treason for encouraging Prussia to attack the National Assembly. This act by Louis XVI sentenced him to the execution via guillotine. Not only himself but his wife and 17,000 other enemies of the revolution. The French Revolutionary War officially came to an end when Napoleon Bonaparte overthrew the revolutionary government and established himself as the first consul of France. The three main causes of the French Revolution were very similar to the American Revolution, the first being financial and economical struggle. The Third Estate was being taxed heavily, nearly half of their income, while the other estates were not taxed at all. France was in debt from helping the Americans win their independence from Great Britain. Louis XVI and his wife, Marie Antoinette, were considered extravagant spenders on the state dime. Actually, Marie Antoinette especially had a reputation of excessive spending, which ended debuting her the symbol of all that was wrong with the French monarchy. France not only had very little money, but very little resources. There had been decades of poor harvest caused by drought, cattle, disease, and increasing bread prices. Many of the poor did not have the means to purchase basic food items. The second cause of the French Revolution was also the absolute monarchy. On May 10, 1774, Louis Auguste became Louis XVI upon the death of his grandfather Louis XV, 15 years before the French Revolution. Louis XVI was only 20 years old at the time. He was also very shy, indecisive, and immature. Louis aspired to be a great king and help his people. However, he came into power while France was already starting to spiral financially. It would be his failure to successfully address these financial problems which would make France's pockets hurt even more throughout the years. It was also Louis XVI whose indecisiveness would lead to court factions and reformers. He could never decide if he would or would not endorse them. Louis also had a bad habit of taking out international loans. Louis was in such debt he was forced to resort to fiscal reforms that were favorable to pretty much no one. The third cause was unequal rights. Before the French Revolution in 1789, France was a feudal society. The French used to operate on an estate system, which was very important because it determined the person's rights and status in society. Within this system, it was incredibly difficult to move up, and it could sometimes take generations to build the family status. The first estate was the clergy, the second was the nobility, and the third estate was the peasants. The peasants made up the majority of the population in France, and 96% did not have any political or economical power. Therefore, the clergy and nobility controlled the land and occupied the most important positions in the church, military, and government. Essentially, the society functioned to keep the peasants destitute and the noble affluent. France and America shared the influence of enlightenment. What sparked in the American mind soon sparked in the French. When French troops came to the United States to help fight in our revolution, ideas and thoughts were shared pertaining to enlightenment. The Enlightenment proposed that everything in the universe could be rationally debunked and followed through science. This put a bad light on the church because it took away its ethos. The Catholic Church used to ordain every belief. It told people who should be in charge and what they should believe to be the ultimate truth without any scientific evidence. People became skeptical of the church. Was the clergy just telling people what they wanted them to believe? Did the king actually have a divine right? The influence of enlightenment was a threat to the order of the church. Evidence of enlightenment is the execution of Louis XVI and the eradication of the Catholic calendar. Enlightenment stressed the idea of natural rights and equality for all citizens. The National Assembly created the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, which corresponds to the theory. Now that we know the causes and resolutions of each war, we should analyze the outcomes. Both revolutions were started with very similar causes, however, they had different motives and different outcomes. In the French Revolution, the French fought for an abstraction, just an idea of a better society and economical situation. They fought for liberty, equality, and fraternity. In the American Revolution, Americans fought for tangible goals. They fought to preserve their traditional rights rather than to overturn an established social order. The Revolution fought for a government where the people ruled and government enforced checks and balances. The French appreciated reason above experience, religion, and divine revelation. Many historians believe that it was this worship of reason without any context of experience that led to the dictatorship of Napoleon. To the Americans, experience was, quote, the best oracle of wisdom, unquote, and, quote, the least valuable guide of human opinion, unquote. Alexander Hamilton wrote this in his essay, The Federalist. Unfortunately, the French Revolutionary War was not that revolutionary because even though the monarchy had been overthrown momentarily, the Reign of Terror begun. Power and government were unstable until Napoleon dictated as France's first consul. The American Revolution was successful. Checks and balances were established to make sure the monarchy never existed in America. Power was given to the people through a democratic republic we still practice today. Throughout my research, I found a quote that I think covers the difference between the revolutions. It's from an essay by Sean Busick that states, "Ours was a revolution more about home rule than about who should rule at home. However, the French Revolution was about who should rule at home. They fought for liberty, equality, and fraternity. Neither equality nor fraternity can be achieved through force by the state. Perfect equality is elusive, and even if it could be achieved, would be inconsistent with liberty." Thank you for watching. Feel free to comment with any questions.